Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to yet another Destiny 2 video, and today the Prestige mode of the Leviathan raid launched and there's already a ton of teams who have completed it. Now there's also a lot of teams that are having a lot of technical issues on some of the new mechanics, so I thought I'd make this video to kind of inform some of you guys and hopefully help you complete the entire raid. Now what this video is not going to be is a full walkthrough, a play-by-play of every single second of every single encounter. What this video is going to be instead is basically a guide of all of the new mechanics moving to the Prestige mode from the regular version of the raid. So basically I'm counting on you guys to already know the mechanics of the original version of the raid, because this one kind of builds on top of the original version. Without further ado guys, if you end up enjoying the rest of this raid guide video, then a like rating would be very much appreciated. Remember to subscribe for more daily Destiny 2 content, and let's get right into it. We're going to be starting off with the gauntlet, and there are a handful of changes. The first mechanic is actually quite difficult to learn because most people within raids have their own designated role, and they usually, are pretty stubborn and don't like to play another role. But for this Prestige raid, you're actually forced to play every single role. And the reason why this is because the same runner cannot pick up the charge and go inside and jump through the hoops twice in a row, or twice in general. You can't do that. So what you're going to have to do is split up your fire team into 3 groups of 2. So the first 2 people are going to go through the hoops. In this case, it was me and my good friend Sporno, and then for the next time that you have to pick up a charge and run in here, it's going to have to be 2 other people, which in my specific raid group was Frostbolt and Flamesword, and for the final group of people it was Grim, and I believe it was Sidewinder. So you're gonna have to make sure that you guys split up into 3 groups of 2 and know when your turn is to run inside. If you thought that made things complicated for each and every one of your fire team members, this mechanic right here will throw a completely other wrench into the mix, and that is that another Psion will spawn on top of each one of the plates every single time a runner goes through that specific plate and goes through the hoop. So as you can see here, I'm jumping through the top left hoop, and what that's going to do is spawn not only the initial Psion that spawns on top of where the psionic charges can be picked up, but there's also going to be a second Psion, and he will spawn randomly to the left, to the right, in front of it, behind it. There's about 4 different spots that he can spawn on the plate. So what the people outside have to do is make sure that they are not only killing that one Psion every single time, but both of those Psions every single time your runner goes through his specific hoop. So keep that in mind. There's always going to be 2 Psions, and you have to kill both of them or it'll wipe your team. Before we get into the final mechanic of this encounter, I want to show you the second mechanic that I just talked about, the extra Psion, from the position of the outside. I realize when I'm being a runner and showing you guys the perspective of the runner, you're not going to see both the Psions. So right there, I meleeed my initial Psion, and then Frostbolt shot my second Psion. So you guys didn't see it there, and you might not see it on this one, but if we just watch the footage here, we'll see it in just a second. So as you can see, I meleeed the Psion, and Frostbolt shoots my second Psion. He didn't get a visual on it because he was blocked by that specific plate standing, so I had to deal with it. And I believe I also killed the second Psion on this plate right here. So as you can see, I melee this first Psion that's always spawning, and then I go ahead and take out this Psion right here. So for those of you wondering what strategy me and my team is doing here, basically the strategy is that we are constantly following the runner. I know other people like to do the strategy where basically they stay stationary on their plates. All 4 people pick one plate, and basically they wait for a runner to come to them. Well, we personally do it in a fashion where we rotate clockwise and we follow the runner. So that was the mechanic right there, guys. 2 Psions spawn every single time a person jumps through the hoop. Pretty simple, but you can use whatever strategy you want. I was simply explaining my strategy so that some of you guys understand what we're doing. I didn't want to confuse you, just wanted to explain which strategy I'm using. So with that out of the way, let's jump on into the third mechanic. And the third mechanic isn't that difficult. It's very similar to the regular version of the raid, but once you're on the final part of this encounter where all 6 players have to pick up a psionic charge from the middle, they're actually only going to see 3 charges per wall of hoops that they jump through, which means you and your fire teamer is going to have to separate into 2 groups of 3. And the reason why this is important is because the first group of 3 is going to miss the first wall and the third wall of charges, meaning they are going to go through a hoop with no charge, while the other team of 3 is going to go through the first and third. Instead, they're going to miss the second wall of hoops, and they're also going to miss the fourth wall of hoops. That way, all 6 of you can make it through to the very end, and that means you'll definitely complete this part of the encounter. Now, it's important to note that all 6 players do not have to make it and dunk it for this encounter to complete. I believe for this specific raid encounter, we only had 3 or 4 of us make it to the ending, and it still counted as a W. So with the gauntlet done, let's move on to the pleasure gardens, which is just a pain in the ass. So the first thing that I want to do before I talk about the mechanics is actually recommend something to all of you watching this video that I wish somebody would have recommended to my fire team, because this took us a solid hour and 20 minutes to complete, and we were just simply going about this the wrong way, and that was we were trying to rush this and complete it in one phase. Now, even though that's very much possible, and I recommend trying that if your team's good enough, don't risk it. If you're finding that, you just can't get a 60 stack or a 72 stack and you can't kill all the dogs, honestly, take your time, make sure that you're getting as many of these pollen sacks as possible without getting caught, because honestly, you have about 2 to 3 minutes of just free roaming around this area before the dogs grow restless and basically, start howling. So take advantage of that safe room. You still have, the option of going in there 3 or 4 times if you'd like. They didn't limit the amount of times you can go into that safe room compared to the normal version of the raid, so that's definitely helpful. So the first mechanic, and obviously the most difficult mechanic for this entire encounter, is that there is now an additional 2 dogs, bringing the total up to 8. The reason why they did this is because there is 8 pollen sacks that you have to go up to, and basically the people with the relics up top, they have to shoot. Well, it just makes sense that they added the 2 extra dogs to complete this encounter. So now there's 1 dog for every single one of these glowing pollen sacks. So instead of killing 6 dogs at the end when you're doing damage, you're gonna have to kill all 8. Now, what I recommend, since you have 3 guardians on the left side of the map and 3 on the right hand side, that once you're all done killing your own specific dog, all 3 of you rush the final dog on your side. Now, I'm going to talk about where these dogs are in just a second. On the left hand side of the map, the new dog is going to go over to L2. L2 is the second pollen sack against the wall, so that's where the new dog is on the left side. And then for the right side specifically, the new dog goes to the pollen that's in between those rocks. A lot of people tend to call it the crack spot. Even though there's only 1 new mechanic, which is basically the 2 extra dogs on the map, it still is a very frustrating encounter because that 1 new mechanic changes so much about this entire encounter. Let me give you an example. There's more health on all of the dogs, which means now you're going to have to take a longer time to kill your own dog before going over and killing the 4th dog that spawns on your side of the map. And then obviously that itself is a new mechanic essentially, because you're now going to have to focus on your own dog, kill your own dog, and then go over and help out with the 4th dog that spawns. Another mechanic that comes out of there being 2 new dogs is that the routes that you previously took in the regular version of the raid might not work anymore. And if they do work, you're going to have a more limited amount of time to basically go into that blind spot of the dogs and, utilize some of those paths that you thought were once extremely effective. That's why it took us so long. We had to relearn a lot of the paths and basically get down the timing of how much time we had to get through a specific window where the dogs couldn't see us. So as you can see right now, we're on a 36 stack, and this we thought we were going to get caught 100%. There was a dog to our right, a dog to our left, behind us, and we luckily got this. We stayed composed, and when we moved over to the left hand side of the map, we're currently on a 48 stack, I believe. Let me just double check. Yep, we're on a 48 stack right now. And we wanted to get 1 more stack. We wanted to get to 60 before we were going to kill all the dogs. But this is actually our second, phase. We didn't do this in 1 phase. We already have all the dogs weak, and we did utilize the safe room. So this right here is our second phase. As you can see, this dog was already less than half health, and most of the dogs on the map were also very weak. So we have 48 stack. We went ahead. This is R3 dog we took care of. I went and killed my own dog, which is the R2 dog, and the rest of my fire team members on the right hand side of the map dealt with the brand new dog that was inside of the crack spot. So just like that, all of us dealt with the dogs that we were assigned and the new dogs on the map, and we completed the encounter. So one thing that I'd recommend is definitely use the safe room to your advantage, and make sure you do not kill any of the dogs on the map unless you are going to kill all of them. If you end up killing 1 or a few of the dogs and leaving the rest of them active and then going into the safe room, you're going to have less time for the next phase before the dogs actually start howling, which is definitely not a good thing because you want to get as many stacks as possible. With that being out of the way, guys, let's jump on to the next encounter, which is of course the baths. If you plan on doing this specific encounter in one phase, there's actually no real new mechanics. Now there's very small things that are subtle that I will mention a little bit later, but if you're somebody who mastered the regular version of this encounter, you shouldn't have too many troubles. Now the one thing that made this encounter difficult especially is the fact that a lot of these enemies were much more tankier and felt like bullet sponges at times, especially the oiled ceremonial bather who's popping up right now out of his little tub. This guy took a lot of damage, so make sure that not only are you using either a Merciless, a Wardcliff Coil, maybe even the Legend of Acris, but make sure you're also throwing grenades at him, and make sure at times that you and your fire team get to double kill him. That's what me and my fire team did as we were rotating. We actually decided to double team him a lot of the time. Be very careful. If he does lunge at you with his swords, he could push you against the wall behind you and one-shot you, even though you don't require a one-shot to die. As you can see, when you kill these ceremonial bathers, they drop this purple pool of light right in front of where they died. Make sure to not step inside of this because it'll actually take away a lot of your psionic charges. I believe it takes away 10 of your psionic charges every 2 seconds you stand inside of it. So make sure to go nowhere near it and make sure he does not die on top of your plate because that purple pool will spawn and it'll take away your psionic charges. So that's really the only mechanic that I have to talk about if you decide on one phasing this specific encounter. I recommend one phasing it. You don't necessarily need a crap ton of damage. If my fire team can do it, then honestly you guys can probably do it as well. So here's footage of me and my fire team completing it in one phase. Now mind you, this is very messy, and honestly it might be very messy for some of you guys as well, and we just got pretty lucky and managed to get all of the lamps, or the crystals, I don't know what you want to call them. But for those of you who do not complete it in one phase and have to do this phase over again and go back to your plates, there is a new mechanic that is definitely going to change the way you play. And that mechanic is basically, there's going to be a symbol, a holographic symbol that spawns on top of this middle plate that you see me and my fire team on top of right now. This holographic symbol will be different for everybody in your fire team. For example, I could get dogs to spawn, another player can get a chalice, and basically that tells you what plate you have to go ahead and stand on for the second phase. For 4 people there will be a symbol, and for the 2 people that are left without a symbol, there will be nothing there. If there's nothing there, that means you have to wait in the middle of the room and pick up that charge and then start the rotation with the other players who have their designated plate to go to. With that out of the way, there's only one more encounter to talk about, and that of course is the final encounter with CALUS himself. Now me and my fire team didn't really find anything too difficult or crazy about this specific final boss. The only thing that we had to worry about is getting a solid strategy down, but once we did get the strategy, it only took us a few attempts to complete it. Now you could probably single phase CALUS if your team is good enough with, lots of good weapons like Mercilesses and Cold Hearts and all that stuff, and of course if you're getting 95 to 100 plus skulls, then you can most likely single phase him, but me and my fire team actually took 2 phases to kill him. Other than everything in this room and CALUS himself having lots more health, there's one main mechanic that a lot of people are going to get confused about until they actually master it. And that is that one person who's in the CALUS room, when he melees the designated PSION that people in the skull room call out, he's going to get teleported into the skull room, and in exchange, one random person who's doing this skull phase will get teleported onto the inside. So it's basically a 1-for-1 trade. If you are in the skull room and somebody melees the PSION, which they're supposed to do, one random person inside here will get teleported into CALUS's room. As you can see, someone meleeed the PSION to go into the skull room, and that actually forced me randomly to go into the CALUS room. Now the one strategy that me and my fire team had was basically have 4 people always working the skull room. So as you can see, there was 3 people who we initially picked to go into the skull room, and 1 person on the outside to melee the first PSION. He then would go inside of the skull room, one random person from the skull room would get teleported outside, and then again it would just be a rinse and repeat. The person who got teleported outside of of the skull room wants to get back into the skull room. So he would then melee the PSION, someone else would then come outside into CALUS's room, and he's doing the same exact thing. He's going to be the next one to melee the PSION. So essentially, if you are somebody who does not know how to do the skulls, you never want to melee any of the PSIONs inside CALUS's room. Your job is only going to be somebody who does damage to all the enemies in CALUS's room, and obviously take down CALUS's shields. At the ending, there's 3 people inside of CALUS's little skull area. You want to shoot all the skulls, make sure you get as high of a skull stack as possible. Of course, like I mentioned, getting 95 to 100 plus will ensure that you can do this in one phase. Like I said earlier though, me and my fire team personally did this in 2 phases. Just to recap extremely quickly before the video finishes, there's basically going to be 2 people designated out of your 6 in the fire team that never melee a PSION. Their sole job is to simply be inside of CALUS's room, take out all of the ads, and worry about taking down CALUS's shield. You're then going to have the one person that is with those 2 people in CALUS's room wait on the signal of the people in the skulls to melee his designated PSION, and then of course you're going to have the 3 remaining players be in the skull room on the initial first part of these skulls. Then of course, once that one player in CALUS's room melees a PSION, he's gonna get switched in exchange for a player in the skull room, and you keep doing that back and forth over and over. It's fairly simple, honestly. Through explanation it might not make too much sense, but I think once you get into the raid and you wipe once with your fire team, you're gonna understand what to do fairly quickly. So as you guys can see here, we're killing CALUS. His shield came up right there, and he had quite a bit of damage, or I should say health, for his shield. It didn't come down as quickly as we thought it would, but still, it wasn't anything to worry about too much, and just like that, we got the CALUS kill. We were pretty hyped. It took us about 3 hours like I mentioned earlier, which isn't too bad. That's probably in hindsight like a top 100 kill if I'm just guessing, speculating here. But what I'm gonna do really quickly is show you the rewards that I got from the final chest. I'll show you what the emblem looks like, I'll show you what specific armor piece I got, and then that's gonna wrap up the video. I want to thank you all very much for watching. I very much do appreciate it. If you could like the video, that would also make my day. Subscribe for more daily Destiny 2 content. Have yourselves a great day, good luck with the raid, and I'll see you all later. Peace.